An officer stands in a doorway on Tres Piedras Road, East Las Vegas, and asks an ordinary question. Where is Monique Gilbertson? The man who answers says she left town. An emergency, he says. Her brother, out on the East Coast. She called him just yesterday, he says, to let him know she was going. The officer's response is short. No, she didn't. Nothing else happens yet. Just a wrong answer, and an officer who already knows it is wrong, and a man growing more defensive with every follow-up question. Another officer will later say it out loud, on camera. It's weird that you are being very defensive about this. Everything that follows is the record catching up to what that officer already sensed, standing in the doorway of a mobile home that from the outside looked like every other mobile home on the street. Curtains drawn, a community road, quiet in the middle of a weekday, with something sinister inside, a body in a freezer for days. Monique Gilbertson was 68 years old, and this was her home. A mobile home she owned outright in a community off Vegas Valley Drive near Nellis Boulevard, the kind of place where residents know each other by sight and a property manager learns a resident's voice on the phone, because that resident calls that often. Neighbors like Gilbertson are not unusual there. A daily caller is. For a period before her death, Gilbertson let a man who was going through a rough stretch stay with her. Reporting describes the arrangement plainly. She was trying to help him get back on his feet. He was, at various points, reported as somewhere between 37 and 39 years old, depending on which year of coverage you are reading. His name was Daniel Roush. Ask yourself, at this point in the story, whether this sounds like the opening of a murder case at all. It does not. That is deliberate. It is not supposed to yet. This was not at first a story about violence. It was a story about a woman who opened her home to someone, and then, over a period of weeks, appears to have realized that the decision needed to be undone. The evidence ladder starts here, and it starts with Gilbertson, not with Roush. Weeks before her death, she is reported to have called police herself about a gun she says she found among Roush's belongings inside her own house. That call, on its own, is not unusual. People report things and stay in difficult living situations anyway. For money reasons, for loneliness, for 100 reasons that never make it into a police report. What matters is that Gilbertson made the report at all. She was, weeks before anyone opened a freezer, already flagging that something in her own home felt wrong. That call did not end the arrangement. What ended it was a text message, one that reads less like an eviction notice and more like an apology for having to give one. Good luck to you. I just can't live with anybody. I'm so sorry. Those are her own words, not a paraphrase, sent by text in October. On October 22nd, she changes the locks. And on that same day, according to the property manager's account, the calls stop. Not slow down, stop. A woman who called multiple times a day, every day, simply goes silent. On the exact date, she locked her own front door against the person she had been living with. Nobody treats that silence as an emergency yet. That is worth sitting with, because this is not a story about a system failing to notice a stranger. It is a story about a system built entirely around one woman's own voice, and what happens when a voice like that goes quiet, and nobody has a protocol built for its absence. Now, the rewind. What prosecutors allege happened in the days after October 22nd is specific, and it is not a story about impulse. Clark County Deputy District Attorney James Puccinelli has said in court that Roush administered fentanyl to Gilbertson at a level investigators calculated at roughly 400 nanograms per milliliter, close to 200 times what is generally considered a lethal dose. Puccinelli's characterization of the motive is direct. Roush did it, he told the court, in an effort to cause her to be deceased, so he could go into her house and take over her life, essentially. 200 times lethal is not a dose that leaves room for an accident or an argument that escalated, or two people who used a drug together and only one of them woke up. 200 times lethal is a number that argues for intent on its own. before a jury ever hears another sentence of testimony. Prosecutors allege Roush and his spouse, Gina Lopez, placed Gilbertson's body inside a chest freezer in the home's utility room. Lopez faces separate charges of drug possession and burglary, not murder. Her account, reported to police, is that Roush told her Gilbertson had overdosed and that she helped move the body afterward. That is her alleged role, and only that. It should not be confused with the far more serious charges Roush alone is facing. The freezer sat there for what the arrest report describes as at least 4 days before anyone opened it, covered deliberately with clothing, inside a home that officers would later describe as cluttered and unclean throughout, with urine and feces reported in multiple rooms. One locked, hidden object inside a house full of ordinary disorder. That is the object this case keeps returning to, not the mess itself, which investigators treat as background. The one thing inside that mess that somebody took the time to cover on purpose, in a room nobody else had reason to open. Which brings the record back to November 6th and the doorway. The property manager, the one whose phone had gone quiet since October 22nd, finally calls for a welfare check after roughly 2 weeks with no contact at all. Officers arrive and get the answer already described. She left town. An emergency. Her brother. She called yesterday. The officer says no, she didn't, because there is no record of that call, because the story does not hold. And the pressure in the exchange builds from there. Officer after officer. The same question asked in slightly different ways each time. Roush's answers narrowing and tightening with every pass.
Where's Monique at?
Monique is, I'm house sitting right now. She left town for a while.
Where is she? No, she didn't. Where is she?
No, she really did, I swear.
Okay, where is she?
I mean,
her car's here.
I know her car's here. She has me house sitting. I have I got my rent receipts.
You're not supposed to be here. Come outside.
Huh?
Come outside. She doesn't have anyone here.
No, I have rent receipts right here, actually.
Okay, come outside.
Well, I'm
let's
not
talk.
coming outside right now. I have paperwork that I'm supposed to be here. Like, you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah, you need to come outside and show us that paperwork.
okay, I have paperwork right here. And I'm not going to come outside right now. Though. I have legal rights.
What's your name?
My name's Jaslyn. I was
Jazz?
Yeah, Jazz. I was
Okay,
renting.
understand that I'm here to do a welfare check on the occupant of this residence. I am going to do that. You need to come out of that.
Well, she's not here right now, though.
You need to step outside right now. I am giving you a legal and lawful command. If you do not obey that command, I'm going to take you to jail and I'm going to charge you with it.
But I have
Step out of that door right now.
No, excuse me. No, I have rights. I call my attorney then. Like,
Okay.
I first off, Monique's not here right now. I have the paperwork right here for her.
How do you contact Monique?
I call her usually on her cell phone, but she called me yesterday from her like friend's cell phone because she said her cell phone got lost, so she had put a pause on her cell phone.
Eventually, an officer gives what body cam audio records as a legal and lawful command, and Roush is told to step outside. Inside, officers find the freezer in the utility room, locked, covered in clothing. According to the Review-Journal's account of the released footage, Roush reacts immediately, telling officers they cannot open it. They open the freezer anyway. What one officer says next, captured on the same audio, becomes the sentence this entire case turns on. There's a person in here. Go get him in handcuffs. That is the moment the earlier lie collapses all at once.
There's a person in here. Go get him in handcuffs.
She did not leave town. She had not called the day before. She had, by every account prosecutors would go on to allege, already been dead inside that home for days, while a man who lived there answered the door for police and told them a story about an emergency and a brother on the East Coast. Roush was arrested at the scene. In January 2025, a Clark County grand jury indicted him on 7 felony counts, including murder, abuse of an older person, burglary, and administering a drug to aid in the commission of a felony. The case was submitted for death penalty review not long after. That step alone does not signal how strong or weak the case against a defendant is. It is part of the process, not a verdict on the evidence. In December 2025, a review committee determined the death penalty would not be pursued, narrowing what the trial itself will ultimately decide. Separately, the marriage between Roush and Lopez and its legal status at the time of Gilbertson's death became its own courtroom dispute over whether spousal privilege protections apply to either of them. Prosecutors argue the two were already separated by the time Gilbertson died. The defense contests that, as of the most recent reporting, that particular question remains unresolved, and so does the trial itself, currently set for October 13th, 2026, with a pretrial hearing scheduled in September. Roush has been denied bail by multiple judges and remains held at the Clark County Detention Center. None of that has been decided yet. Every charge described here is an allegation, one still being tested and argued in a courtroom that has not reached a verdict. The freezer, the fentanyl level, the text message, the changed locks, all of it sits in the record as what was found and what was alleged, not as a finished story. Here is what the record can say for certain. Monique Gilbertson died sometime between late October and November 6, 2024, and her body was found inside her own freezer during a welfare check that took roughly 2 weeks to happen. Here is what has been reported and alleged, but not yet proven at trial. That she was force-fed a dose of fentanyl prosecutors describe as roughly 200 times lethal. That the motive, according to the deputy district attorney, was to take over her house and her life. That her spouse helped move her body afterward, on charges far smaller than the ones Roush faces alone. And here is what remains unresolved, heading into an October 2026 trial that has not yet happened. Whether a jury agrees with that theory of intent, whether the spousal privilege dispute changes what evidence a jury even hears, and a harder question underneath all of it, one no verdict will actually settle. Why a woman who reported a warning sign, changed her locks, and cut contact on a specific, traceable day could still go 2 weeks without anyone treating her silence as an emergency. Monique Gilbertson spent weeks acting like someone who already sensed she was in danger. She reported a gun. She wrote an apology and ended a living arrangement she no longer felt safe inside. She changed her locks on a specific, identifiable day. And she had, for reasons that had nothing to do with any of this, already built her own early warning system years earlier. A habit of calling her property manager so often and so reliably that its absence should, in theory, have been impossible to miss. It took 2 weeks. Anyway, the court will eventually answer whether Daniel Roush is guilty of the charges against him. It will not answer the other question this case leaves open, the one that has nothing to do with a verdict at all. Gilbertson did almost everything a safety plan could ask of a person in her position. She reported. She locked. She stopped talking to the one person she needed to stop talking to. The system around her was simply never built to hear a habit stop. It took a property manager and 2 weeks and a freezer covered deliberately in clothing to notice that the calls had gone quiet on the exact same day she had finally tried to make herself safe.